Hello, everyone. My name is Roopa Sunku, and I'm the Chief Evangelist, Career Help with Touch a Life Foundation. Today, I bring to you another episode of Mentor Loop. This series of podcasts that we're doing is centered around corporate jobs, job movement, job assessment, and any kind of job help and career help that you need in terms of determining direction, addressing scenarios that you are facing, or communication within the organization to elevate your position and to move to greater heights within your career is the primary objective. So based on these objectives, I thought I'd kind of do a conversation with all of you on what are some of the things that you need to think about while applying for a new job or moving to a different portfolio or to a different career line, or to look at moving from one company to the other. So the essence or the essentials of job and what kind of work and what placement or what positioning you want to do needs a certain amount of self-assessment. So some of the topics you need to think about, which is more on the surface of job and what is the purpose of a job. So look at what jobs are made for male and what jobs are made for female. We definitely do understand that corporations like to keep the equity of the company balanced, but you know that there are certain jobs, just say if you have a job that is lifting very heavy equipment, that is not something that would be enticing for a woman. And possibly, right? There are yet other stronger women that can do the job. And that is the question that you need to look at and determine if you are able to do that job based on your gender preferences is one aspect to look at. The next one is, I think this is a really important piece that gets forgotten, and that is what will be this particular job profile in 5 to 10 years down the line? Are you in a position or a job that can get redundant? Or is this a position that will always stay, which I would call as recession proof, or now we would say pandemic proofed, right? So think about the job and say, will it stay there for the next 5 years? And what is it that you need to transition and inhabit into your own behavior and skills to be able to stay current in that job? Also look at things that can be done away. If there is analytics or auto calling or the different softwares that are put into place for analysis will make your job redundant or not. So now politicians who are doing their campaigns want to make thousands of calls luring their constituents to vote. And all of that can be computerized with a standard message and a recording that can be propagated through different social medias or through the phone lines to their constituents. So those jobs are probably going to get fewer and more possibility of redundancy. Think about that. The next one is think about transferability of skills. So if you are a teacher, say in English, you can be a person who writes the speeches for different speakers, or you could be the translators based on languages. So the transferability of your skills is another thing that you want to learn. Often enough, people are focused on getting into a position and doing that. So somebody like a doctor may not be able to get into something transferable. A doctor is training to be a doctor, but they can probably take on administrative areas, or they can go into the emergency rooms, or they can have a private practice. So those are all the variations within a doctor who has definitely got a very structured environment to work in. But take, for example, a teacher, as I mentioned. You could always teach or work in those companies that utilize your teachability skills, right? You could be private tutors and so many other variations within that. So think about that. The next thing to also look at is what are the skills and qualities that employers look for. Often enough, your basic educational degrees and how far you have traversed the universities, be it a bachelor's, master's, or a PhD. That's probably something that you need to look at on what employers do need as the basic skills for that particular position. You also want to look at how the employer looks at education and opportunity and the diversity within their company structure or portfolios, whether you can move from area to area. Once you have understood the landscape or the ecosystem within each organization, you should be able to move around. So think about that as well. Then the next one is just understanding the business world and making sure you have the basic skills of working with peers, working within the boss employee hierarchy, being able to communicate and network in the workplace. Those are all some of the soft skills that you should have, including problem solving skills that will help motivate and persevere your confidence in executing on the job. The next aspect that you need to think about is what is your ideal situation to work in and what are your motivating factors that will make you thrive in your company. To me, prior to having the children leave the house for their onward education, my kids were as important as my job was, and to be able to run the household. So having flexibility to be able to take the kids to the doctor or spend some time with them to get their extracurricular activities was super important. So I would look for a position or a job that gives me that flexibility to be able to manage the work-life balance. While now, with my kids being gone and being an empty nester, to me, the motivation of that flexibility is not there. So I'm more driven towards that end goal. So those are some factors that you need to think about. And is it money? Is it commute, hours, ability to work as a hybrid worker, or a few days at home when you have to run some errands? Or do you have a full weekend off? Are you paid overtime? What is your vacation? Those are all certain aspects that you want to consider when taking a job in terms of what is flexible to you and what is non-negotiable for you. And a lot of people want to be acknowledged and see that growth year over year. And there are certain organizations that will not allow for that at all in terms of structure, in terms of their philosophy. So look for those sort of companies that will give you that flexibility of growth and opportunity all bundled together. Also, some people like to go into work, making it a hobby, something that they like, something that they're passionate about. And some others would like to just go in purely from a skill to remuneration kind of a perspective. So think about that and determine whether you're better off being self-employed or a contractor or a consultant versus a full-time employee. Those would be another set of factors to kind of consider. Lastly, I would say always look to determine whether you are going for a job or a career. If you just want to make ends be met and do a job, that's absolutely fine. And that may be something that you need for a period of time. But when you want to move that career up and going and moving up those ladders and being industry specialist, then your dedication and their expectations are all going to be different. So I hope you've been able to kind of consider a couple of these areas when you're moving and making those job changes. But more importantly, I kind of feel it's important to reflect on yourself and not only look at all of those factors that I've mentioned about how does the company treat you and what do you get from the company and what do you want from the company. But more importantly, I think you should be able to look in the mirror and ask yourself this question: do I like where I'm working? What is important for me to like and work in that company? Are the people or the work or the environment that makes it different for me? And pin it down. And when you're on that job hunt or that pursuing a career path, then you can make those decisions based on what is more important to you when you are looking for that job. Then the second aspect is skill assessment. So it is important for you to make sure that you are current and always keeping the skill combination or the skill game being upped at every point in your career. Following your dreams is something important. So these are all more of the emotional, evaluational questions that you need to consider when moving or considering a position. Following your dreams, networking, and regular basis doing some informational interviewing. Every interview does not mean that you're looking for a position. It may be just an interest to see if that is, or curiosity to see if that is something of a profession that you would appreciate, you would enjoy, and you think you can land a job with where you are in that interview. It is also trying to assess whether you need to academically move up and change or learn or recertify to be able to land that job. And salary. This is something that I always like to think about salary on a personal assessment perspective of whether a salary is primarily the main income and the main focus and the primary thing within a job. I like to look at salary with all of the others, like the benefits come with it, the educational opportunities that you can get within the job, the vacation time that you get in the job, flexibility of work hours, being able to work remotely if there is a need for us to take care of some family needs, the ability to have a very cohesive and nice office space to work in with probably a gym, a cafe, etc. So those are all the things that kind of go into that package that I look for when you are going into a job or a job change. The last but most interesting piece to all of these points that I've shared with you is whether it gives you the opportunity to put some change in your career, feel like you have done what you can for yourself, to be noticed in the industry, to be considered in the industry as somebody who is a professional and is well versed with what they have and what they have given. Often enough, it is doing a lot of other auxiliary activity like volunteering or being an inspirational speaker or an influential speaker in your work environment for the community at large around you. So think about all of these things that will actually help you make those job decisions. And the first set of 13 areas that I spoke about were more around the job itself. The second set of 10 factors that I spoke to you more about, how does it make you feel? What are your preferences? And what do you think you can do with what you've got there? So I hope you think about all of these aspects of the job and your personal engagement, efficiency, and expectations to make a holistic change for your career path, as well as make that job selection be suitable and give you an environment that you can thrive and prosper with. If you like what you have heard here today, I would encourage you to go back to touchalife.org and look up all of the different mental loop sessions and other leadership sessions that have been hosted on our website, and encourage you to join us in helping those underserved communities or those people in need for any of the professional or monetary help that or assistance that you can propagate within your community or by yourself to the people in the world. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great one.